Travis, how are you?
I just moved up there about 2 months ago. Yeah. Got a house, saw a house in construction. I'm like, yeah, that's a house. What's Gibson? What? Gibson? Aquarius Park? What's that? Oh, yeah. Okay. I recommend Aquarius Park. Well, welcome to the show. Yeah, I'll take off and do it. Like, really? Please? I'll work for you. Well, this stuff is like Hi, Joyce. Oh, yeah? How's the kiddo? Good. retire easy. So, I need to get with her. I last rolled a while back to do the Jack Skeleton one. With Sally, she said she could, and we just didn't catch. I need to get a hold of her later. Get that done.
Yeah, that's pull down. That's crazy.
I saw somebody post it, and I was like,
That's wicked. She's one of those that, like,
that's awesome. She does an amazing job. More talent than I have.
yeah, me too. That side of the, that's all on her.
Or maybe just a month.
That's awesome. Yeah, but I haven't talked to anybody. I talk to Billy every now and then, just to check on him if he's still alive.
Yeah.
Because I'm still around, still kicking. Alright, Billy, just gotta check on you. Okay.
So we all kind of go our separate ways. But, you know, I don't know, it's all this stuff. This is, level, how hold on.
Right in my eyes. I can't see anything.
Great golf man.
Where am I?
How we doing? Like that. There we go. How you doing? Very good. We're gonna have to go outside.
But ultimately, if we fill up, then we'll open the door. If we have to, we'll open the doors. Is the idea. Because otherwise, it's like
Doctor I go to is there's like 3 2 now. Doctor I go to is 3 2. He's a man, and I told him about the meeting. He was like, Dr. Bowen?
Was that you throwing class here?
People coming in. Did everybody get a copy of the agenda? All right. Nikki. Anybody that wants one, put your hands up. We're going to try to be respectful of your time and hit these agenda items. And then at the end of these 4 agenda items, we'll take questions. My name is Brent Moore, for those I have not met. I'm a board member on the POA. I'm Carter Tate and Daryl Skin. So the reason for this meeting tonight, if you guys look at the background on the front page, at our last board meeting, it appeared to us, based on information that we received throughout the week, that there was not going to be a quorum for the meeting that was coming up. So what I did on the day of the meeting, I asked for a special meeting to be called, or I made a motion for a special meeting to be called informational meeting, because there were several important things on the agenda and that had been bouncing around between the board members of the POA. So we called I made the motion, Carter seconded it, per our bylaws, and over the next week, it was apparent that the meeting was not going to be advertised by the POA. So, among other reasons, it just gave us concerns. So, what we asked multiple times to please give the 72-hour notice for the membership to meet on a certain date at a certain time to go through this agenda. It was denied. So it's not something that's uncommon for us over the last 9 months. I don't know, anytime you guys want to jump in, just raise your hand, I'll pass you the mic, give me a signal, whatever. So it gave us some concern. We understood that the meeting wouldn't be called, so that's why we have a meeting here. We're paying for this meeting, paying for the security, and we're going to give you the information that's on this agenda tonight. Again, raise your hand if you want to ask a question. We'll answer it to the best of our abilities, and if we don't have an answer for you, we'll find it.
Brent, in the 72 hours required to text over the weekend?
That's correct. Yeah, and if you read the bylaws of the POA, it clearly states how a special meeting can be called. We didn't call it a special board meeting. It was an informational meeting to the membership, and you can do it by 10% of the membership, which is
how Arch happened.
yeah.
It's what?
That's how Arch happened. The 10% population rule, 540 people.
Yeah, so over 500 people can call a special meeting, or two board members, okay? And that's what happened. The board meeting wasn't advertised, so here we are. So I'm going to jump into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the new POA board attorney, which is Cagle, Carpenter, and Hazelwood. Hello, Amanda.
Right there.
We just call her new niece.
Okay, so this advertisement that I have in my hand, or this folder that I have in my hand, is what I received when Carter and I went to a meeting that was called a board workshop. You guys didn't know about it. You weren't invited to it. And all of the information that I'm telling you tonight, I have everything printed here in emails and facts that are emails between the board, emails to our executive director. So anybody that wants information to support any one of these four, I've got it right here, and I'll be glad to share it with you. I've got multiple copies. So we got a notice of board workshop by Marvin Jones on October 8th. And when we asked about what is this workshop for, it was to talk about an attorney that had written a book on POA law. So we said, well, that'll be good information for us to know about. And we can certainly improve things in the POA. You can improve things in your family, in your business, in your personal life, and all that. So everybody acknowledges that. What I followed up with, and again, these emails are up here, is, hey, shouldn't we invite our attorney? that we have on staff to listen to what this guy that wrote the book.
Whom, by the way, is an HOA, POA registered specialist.
Yep, it represents homeowners associations across the state.
Our, our attorney.
Yeah, John Bell is certified,
Right, I know that.
which, which you have to be in January to represent a POA, not previously. And this, but this cable guy wrote this book,
Okay.
who is
so-
also certified.
Thank you. So, we question, why is this a board-only meeting? Why don't we have the presentation at our next board meeting as in open meeting as a presentation? Or why don't we have our attorneys coming? We got some pretty interesting responses from other board members, like, why would we do that? It's competition. So, wow, competition in what? We thought it was an informational meeting to talk about the book that he wrote. Well, when we got the meeting date, it was October 16th. That's an important date. 10/16 was when the meeting was set. Carter and I showed up at 7 o'clock. When we got there, and we just talked about this with the executive director tonight, the rest of the board, minus Daryl and minus Vicky, were already there at the office with the attorney
In the private office. Not in the
and
meeting.
with our executive director. So Carter and I showed up, okay, we went into the meeting. That's when we received this blue book. And again, I've got copies for you guys. In the blue book, the informational meeting, Daryl, can you hold that? Sure. Is this piece of information. This information is a proposal to provide services to the POA. Spells out the terms, the conditions, the rates,
Per letter.
how much we're gonna get charged per letter for foreclosure proceedings, how they will do that. All of that was in a proposal that's dated October 15th, the day before the meeting.
So it sounds like to me like you had already hired them.
So, yeah, so
So it
Mr.
sounds
Mindy
like-
says, sounds like they had already hired him or that they were getting ready to. So Carter and I were at the meeting. It was a roundtable discussion where we were allowed to ask questions. Pretty much, Carter and I asked questions. Maybe one other board member asked one question, not another question. It was a presentation. I asked at one point, if this is a presentation about the book, why do we have a proposal? I don't understand. What is your understanding of this meeting? Then it became apparent that
He
it's an
actually
informational-
said, I am applying for this job, in some form. And we were surprised by that. But what was most fascinating was the questions that were asked, because, you know, Marta asked, or promoted the book, basically. I believe Marvin asked a single question on some detail related to one of my questions. And I'm fascinated by HOA and real estate law, and so I had a lot of questions for the guy. Jim, the executive director, had a couple of interesting questions. He pointed out that he is an attorney that represents the entire board, not just the president of the board, which came from question one also. It was very informative, and frankly, I liked him. I mean, I thought he was, smart. I mean, I know a couple of these kinds of attorneys, and I liked him. But I didn't realize it was positive interview
Yeah, so it's interesting because, can I get a show of hands, who are what we call the old homeowners under the old rates versus, so old rates, all right? Okay, and new rates. So it's.
By the way, you old rates are called grandfathers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good joke, good joke.
So it's an interesting deal, and
We did pursue that.
whether, what side of the debate you're on doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is that all the board members have a seat at the table to debate and come up with a solution based on who you guys elect, all right?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, first of all, are they allowed to hire an attorney without an open meeting? Good question.
We're getting there. We're getting there. And I'm going to address that right after this little story. So we're kind of evenly right down the middle about grandfathered lots to new lots. My position is, we all should have a seat at the table. We should be able to debate. We should vote in open meetings, and then we live by the vote, right? Unfortunately, that's not what's happened over the last 9 months. Votes are decided before the board meetings and without 3 of these members. The votes, the script of the meeting is written down. The motions are written down. The people that second the motions are written down. And those who are going to vote for to pass it are written down.
And this
And it's
started a
written-
long time ago. Vicky started,
This script is
8 months.
followed to the T. Nobody varies, and the 3 board members are going, what's going on? Okay? So I'm gonna tell you the story about our meeting, in our meeting. Actually, I think we may have some differences in opinions between some board members on this, but what's important to me on this subject is we've got grandfathered lot owners and we've got new. And we asked a question about what's the situation, what do you see the situation with the fees on the lots?
have you seen this before anywhere else?
My position is it takes care of itself. As new owners come in, they pay the new rates, and eventually everybody eventually pays the new rates in so many years. Or you voted in that the rates change. That is not the advice we got at this meeting. And this is very important. Listen to this.
This is key.
This is very important. The attorney told us that's not the way we want to do it. That's not the way you should do it. What you should do is put something out to the homeowners that tells them something we can all agree on, okay? We can all agree on one item, and snow cones for everybody, whatever you pick. And then we'll all go to one set of rules instead of each subdivision voting on it. Once we get everybody on the one set of rules, then we come in and put the new rate hike on people to vote on. The reason why is to get the old grandfathered homeowners overthrown by the new rate holders. Whether you're on the grandfathered side or you're on the new side, doesn't matter in this case to me. What matters is that is not transparent. That is not right. What we should do, in my opinion, tell everybody what we're trying to do, vote it up or vote it down as a community. Don't try to trick people.
It actually got a little more involved in that what he suggested is that we have one combined covenant for, because they're all different now, and that is confusing and messy in some areas, not a lot, but anyway, so his theory was that in this process, we would come up with one set of covenants. And and for the whole operation, and you're exactly right, because some of them are different, some of them are condos, and some of them are, don't get me started on 44-year-old walls to 21-year-old walls.
Okay, we have a question?
Well, the fact is that there's a lot of common things throughout all
Sure.
of the,
And that's the first 5 paragraphs of each.
and it's only the exceptions. But those exceptions are important.
Key.
And they have to attempt to deal with the.
But that's where it was gonna end
Mr.
up.
Parker, I have a question.
How do you do away with the old covenant?
You
They
replace,
came in with
you
what?
replace them with one general.
But they have to vote more than 51% to approve that.
Actually,
yes?
some of them are different, some of them are higher, some of them are lower, but.
But
yeah.
not to complicate the thing, but yes,
It is
you approved the easy thing to get to the, down the road to.
And then they'll just vote and not really know.
Yeah.
So they're duping everybody into doing it.
I'm sorry?
They're duping everybody into doing it.
I apologize to all the attorneys in here, but it's lawyering. It's
Yeah.
not transparent. And he
Okay, so-
gave us his tool.
So, the law, thank you for not letting me off the hook. 'Cause I was about to go to the second topic, you know, would have skipped your question. So what happened after the meeting is, a day later or 2 days later, I don't recall, the board agenda showed up, and it was, on the board agenda was to hire the new attorney. So the proposal that we had was already set. It went on the board agenda. The meeting that we talked about that we didn't think was gonna be a quorum and not hold, that meeting, the 4 members showed up. They voted to fire the old attorney and then hired the new one that we just had an informational meeting with.
But,
Yeah.
so I gotta make a point.
So, Mr. Pittman.
That was item number 11 on the agenda. That was item number 11 on the agenda to hire this new attorney, and it got moved to item number 1. And to get rid of the existing attorney, and they did say terminate, I went back and looked at all that. That was not even posted on the agenda. This is an attorney that's been with the POA for whatever, 10, 15 years, and it wasn't even on the agenda. How can you end up terminating your existing attorney and it's not even on the agenda?
You should read the letter that did it.
Okay. So, I'm going
I
to,
have one question with that. We have a policy, the board has a policy, or the POA has a policy that says any expenditure over $5,000 requires 3 bids. Did the board get 3 bids for attorneys?
no. No, we didn't. So I'm gonna pass around these 2 stacks of emails. And, it's interesting, I think, this talks about the posting of the public meeting, which was denied, and the meeting with the law firm, and then the, board workshop and the notice. There's 2 stacks, and, if I don't have enough copies, sign the meeting sign in, and we'll get you a copy. And, with that, I'm gonna move on to item number 2, unless there's another question.
How much, is there a price on the attorney?
Is there a price on the attorney?
How much
No.
was it?
I will tell you,
It's per job, per request.
yeah, there is a rate sheet, and
And you can see, sure.
here's some of the information. You guys are welcome to look at this about the fast track of HOA collection. Demand letter, notice of lien, payment plan, and then foreclosure. So if you guys want to see this, it's up here. There is.
While we're on the attorney, if I may.
Sure. This is Brian McKee.
Yeah, while we're on the attorney, and I am an attorney, the one thing that I found objectionable, of your point won't make it, is that now Marvin is the only one who can pick the attorney. So if Carter or Brent or any of the board members have questions,
If he
they have to run
represents
it,
the board and.
they have to run it through Marvin. And I find that with an attorney somewhere that
And I just found that an issue on my own HOA board, that I'm the president, the attorney represents the board, and we have an issue with the board member, but he will not, because it's a board thing.
my point exactly, is
Yeah.
that Brent has a question, and Carter has a question.
That was
They have to-
just today.
They have to run it through Marvin.
And how do you think that's gonna go?
Not only the board members, but our executive director has to ask for that permission to talk to the attorney. I find that crazy. So someone else have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I've been reading all the things on neighborhood and the Facebook posts, and this is the first meeting that I've been here for a long time. I don't understand why an executive director doesn't put her foot down or his foot down with the board. I mean, the executive director should know board rules, and should be able to control the board to the point where they're directing that. The board is an oversight, not the nonsense, excuse me. But I don't understand, where is this on the executive director?
Yeah, the executive director serves the board. The executive director,
The board.
yes, and. Yes,
Should.
and that was actually a topic that came up in this meeting. The attorney said, if you don't like what the executive director is doing, 4 members of the board can remove your executive director. So,
Okay.
okay, so, the question was, what are some of the fees and the expenditures and all that? We don't have a fee and expenditure. What we have is a 2018 flat fee schedule, and I'm not here to argue whether these rates are excessive or not. I doubt they are, because these look like, frankly, well, some of these attorneys get more than engineers for sure. I'll just give you some examples, and again, I'll pass this around if you want a copy. Initial ownership verification, $45 for the letter. $135 for the second demand letter. $185 for the first demand letter. $195 notice of lien. $100 for obtain certified copy of deed. $350 for full title report. There's a $850 for expedited judicial procedure. There's a whole rate sheet here. I'm sure they're fair rates, but there is no, you're gonna pay $5,000 or $50,000 this year. So I'm gonna pass this around for anybody that wants it.
John on the flat agreement?
No, John's not on file.
Actually, there were about 3 different stuff.
The problem with proceeding with foreclosures is, and what has happened is, when they haven't paid the POA for a number of years, they also have not paid their taxes or their city fines, whatever. And so what you end up with, especially on a vacant lot, is you don't get any money, and you have spent a lot of money in order to accomplish it. That is why the policy was always, we let the county foreclose, we get a new owner, and then we start getting our fees. It's not, you write off that bad debt because you're not gonna get it unless you spend a lot of money, and then you're not gonna get it anyway because there's so much owed against it. So that was the thinking. Now, I also object to the thing that was out there was that I didn't do any collection work. I clearly did, and there was a whole notebook full of those letters.
All right, like I said, we're passing that around. If you want a copy, get a copy, or we'll email it to you. The next thing is the channel marker status, and I'm gonna turn this over to Carter, because Carter has, the committee has actually asked for Carter to be the board liaison with the committee. And that is still out. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah, apparently that's not, doesn't matter. So this, we're talking about our north and south channel, the markers that keep boats out of the dirt. Okay? And we started this, I don't know, years ago, and it's a hugely a complicated thing when the Coast Guard gets involved in it and stuff. And so they created this, well, the Canals and Waterways Committee came up with a plan and it worked on it. And frankly, there were a lot of markers, and you all saw at the board meeting we argued about the size of the signs and the how many markers are, and it went on and on and on. And finally, we start getting close to a deal. I start working with the Canals and Waterways Committee. We kind of split the baby. To be frank with you, the whole argument in the end was about whether we were going to have, what was it, 6 markers in the south and 10? 16, so 6 in the south and 10 in the north channel. Whereas, so that's 16, and we currently have 32, and so we ended up, we went back and forth. We negotiated on 28 for a couple of days, and it went back and forth, and then we, anyway, the next thing you know, the only person that can talk to the POA is to the Coast Guard is Marta Sprout, and everybody's going, well, wait a minute, we're not getting straight information. Well, I think that was after this, but yeah. So, in the negotiations with the Canals and Waterways Committee, which has done a lot of work, I mean, they went out there with GPS coordinates and had all these markers planned, and anyway, 32 markers is reasonable. That's between both, by the way, and we were going to, rather than try to fix them, put all brand new markers in and gain another 50 years. And so I submit a motion to accept the deal on the floor that was their recommendation. I think you did it first, the whole recommendation. And that's when we got down to 30 markers. And I got a second, and we passed it. And Vicky voted for it. And so we had a 4-3, and it just, nothing ever happened with it. I mean, it just disappeared. And then Marta comes out with a,
Yeah, so
I might have it backwards.
sorry.
No.
So the short of it was, the Canals and Waterway Committee came up with a recommendation, a proposal to get the canal markers fixed and installed and done.
With tons of work.
So, yes, many hours spent.
On the water.
There was engineering drawings, engineering talent that was donated, drawings that were made, bid sheets that were made, estimates that were made. They proposed this to the board. The board made a motion. It passed and said, get the thing bid and get the markers done. That wasn't good enough. Then it came back a second time because there were 4 or 3 members that didn't like this motion that passed. They went back and said, oh, but there was a mistake here, there was a mistake there, need to fix this. So the Canal Waterway Committee went back to the drawing board, fixed the errors that were in there. Some were misspelled words, some, things like that. Some were an argument over some of the coordinates that were in there.
One marker that was copied.
A marker that had copied coordinates. They fixed that. They brought the proposal back to the board. There was a motion made. It was seconded. 4 members voted for doing the proposal and getting still wasn't good enough. So what we've got is a Canal and Waterway Committee that did a ton of work, brought proposals to the board. We passed it 4-3 twice. It still wasn't good enough, folks. So now, one of the board members made contact with the U.S. Coast Guard, turned it and made it look like we were the ones that were violating the law, and now the Coast Guard came down and said, we're gonna fine you, you better get this done in 30 days. And they came up with their own solution. And now that's what we're gonna try to install. So, if you think you have without a vote.
When you say they, you mean the three boards?
When I say they, I'll tell you who supported both proposals. Brent Moore, Carter Tate, Daryl Scanlon, and Vicki Marsden passed the motion. Twice, 2 times.
So it's a done deal.
So,
It should be a done deal.
Yeah.
so democracy is not good enough.
The next, the people that voted against it, Marvin Jones, Marta Sprout, and Nick Colosi. Okay? So, that's why we were having the meeting. We passed it twice. The markers still aren't built. La Casada is coming up. Safety issues. Boats coming in and out of the canals. We've had folks run aground. There's safety issues out there, and we're still diddling around with it.
Okay, so question, so it's been approved twice, so who tells those people to get it done?
The executive director,
Who's not doing it? Well,
which is told by the president of POA,
okay.
no.
This is
I don't
my
know.
first meeting, so I'm just checking, yeah.
I'm one out of the reason. But Robert rules of order, which should be followed to a T with this group. I've been there. You have a proposal and you vote and it passes. The corrections go in before. Once the board votes according to Robert's rule of order, then you follow that through.
That's right.
You don't have a second vote, and you don't change a comma, and you don't go back and have discussions or things. That's what they ruled on, and that's what gets done.
But that is only in a repreentative government. Okay.
I understand what you're saying, I'm just saying that's.
Okay, so the next thing, and this is still remaining, and this is, I'm very thankful that you guys have all shown up. I would say stay connected, because there's more to this story. There's a lot more to this story coming out.
Be sure your name's on the email list.
And before I see the emails with my own eyes, I'm not gonna make a claim, but I'm telling you, stay connected to this story. Because we've dug and we've found more information about the correspondence between the board, some of the board, and the Coast Guard.
So, question. I think one thing that I learned when I started getting involved in that part of it is when I started asking the questions about what went down. One thing that I do know is this POA used to have a killer relationship with the Coast Guard. In fact, the Coast Guard helped put in, or no, it was the Coast Guard Auxiliary, Coast Guard Auxiliary helped put in the initial markers that were, quote, they keep calling illegal and stuff. It wasn't until Marta got in contact with the Coast Guard that we all of a sudden got nasty letters from them that said, you guys are bad. And
8 years
we're all
of
done.
non-compliance.
And Greg's trying to be politically correct here, but I don't have to be. I'll just tell you right out. What I learned was that her letters and her contact with the Coast Guard ruined our relationship with the Coast Guard. And we're a water community, guys.
So my question, really, I'm loud. This is my first meeting. I've been on several boards and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So can't you have a forum of board members to out this person that is not doing what he's supposed to? Is that what we're doing
So this
here?
brings us to a non-agenda item, but it's a very good question. Very, very good question. I'm gonna tell you where we're at right now. You could.
Because we did that. I've
The
done that
attorney,
before.
our new attorney said, you know, the way to solve the problem is you get the 4 board members and say, put the canal markers in, like we voted, right?
Right.
The 4 people voted for it, put the canal markers in. Unfortunately, one of our board members sold her house on October 31st. So there's no longer a 4th board member. There is a 3 versus 3 tie, which brings us to another subject, which we had tonight. Folks, now we are arguing like in previous presidential elections about the word may.
Not is.
And this is what we're arguing. The board may appoint another board member. It doesn't have to. Okay? So right now we have 3 versus 3. We got a hung jury. Okay? Right? And the hope is that we take it to the election and get the power switched to the other side so we can have more representative government.
Kelly McFadden put in the paper that it was not a may, it was an is.
Well,
that's not like illegal.
Yeah.
Illegal if we don't do it that way.
Okay.
So if you follow the logic of the term may, you say, okay, that's what it says. So does that mean may means that they don't have to? So does that mean we don't have to appoint a 7th board member and we can just remain 3-3 until her term is up? 2 years left after March. And so I was just struck by the explanation of this may, we may do this or we may. And when you look at the schedule that's up on the board in there, you find that, well, the first thing that comes out is nobody can put an application in to be Vicky's replacement until the 16th, which is tomorrow. Interestingly, because the 15th, today, is the last day to register to run for the board seat, which I think is odd. And then you go in and look at the schedule, and they're going to open the registration for the, don't let me forget to go back to canals, because I got some stuff. So I said, well, how long are you going to leave it open for people to apply to be appointed? And he said, well, December I don't know, it was May. Anyway, it's inching closer and closer to March. And it's thank y'all for coming. It's a mess. And once again, apologizing to the lawyers, it's lawyering. Because you understand that our executive director is an attorney, doesn't practice, and then Marvin Jones is an attorney. And I can't tell you how many times I've said, wait a minute, but you're just a board member, you can't be an attorney in here, Anyway, so the main thing, it's just really messy.
Hey Carter, we have a question here, so do you want to ask?
Isn't there somewhere in the decks in the bylaws that says you have to have a certain number of board members?
Absolutely, it
Okay,
does.
so
Hoses that
so
main
when
thing.
exactly, that should hose it completely.
It does.
Where you have to elect another board member.
It does. But you don't even have to go that far. You just logicize the term may. I mean, it's like.
Somewhere else in the decks in the bylaws,
Intent.
there is, and it supersedes that.
Agree. Totally agree.
Okay, so,
Let me just clarify something you said, because it's inconsistent with what Mr. Smith said. First off, if you want to file for that, I was told by Jim I can do that tonight, and not yet. So the 16th, I don't know what that means.
Well, we're not accepting them until, but maybe they're safe. That's what it says.
What did you apply for?
Both election to the board and or the substitution on Vicky, which if Travis puts this on the internet, that ain't happening. Be that as it may, that's confusing, but Grande Communications is down right now.
Yes.
It's going to have a real issue with the deadline. I thought it was closed for business today. Turns out it was midnight, and I'm looking at the internet, and the internet's dead. I go to see Jim so I can physically file, and their internet's dead. So I don't know what you as the board are going to do about these
days given the fact that you asked us to follow by email, and we can't.
Okay. Henry, did you have a question?
Well, I was just gonna say that one of the things that I think is kind of missing, it's implied but not stated, I want to state it for a fact, and that is the executive director should be working for the board, but he doesn't. He works for Marvin Jones and Marta Sprout. He only does what they tell him to do. Because I contacted him one time and asked him why he wasn't doing something that the board had approved, having to do with the canals and waterways thing, okay? And Jim Spock came back and told me that he was referring it to the board. Well, he never referred it to the board. He just asked, Marvin and Marta, and they said, no, we're not going to do spend the money and do the markers. So he's not working for the board. He's working for those two.
Yeah, so I would encourage you guys to take the handouts that I gave you. It's a 20-minute read through the email chain, and you'll see exactly that. I've asked that question about when are you going to post the notice? Well, I haven't been given direction to post the notice. I said, wait a minute. Our bylaws say two board members can call a meeting. So two board members call the meeting. I'm asking you, as the one that made the motion, to post it 72 hours. Follow the bylaws. I can't. I'm waiting on direction. I asked direction from who? We're the board. And read the documents and see what the answer is. You're exactly right.
Well, I sent an email as well and asked Jim Spock that question, and I never got an intelligent answer.
You're exactly right. Okay, so we've jumped around to item number 5, the replacement appointment of new board member. Did that cover it? Did everybody get that?
Well, it seems like they're trying to just basically shoehorn their own person, their own yes man or woman into their position and play whatever game they want to play to do it.
I don't know what the process is for the appointment. We've had some board correspondence between us about the processes that we did prior, on prior deaths or when folks left the board.
And the response was positive. That sounds like a reasonable way to handle it.
Yeah, so I think the issue will be that somebody makes a motion, make Joe blow the appointment, there'll be a vote, and there's 6 board members right now. Hopefully it won't be a 3-3 split, but possibly it will. Then we go to the next nomination. Hopefully it won't be a 3-3 split, but it likely will. And then we go to the next candidate. So we'll see how it turns out, Travis. Okay, we gotta move on.
So we've got all this passage, and I'm working with the canals, and we're going out in boats and looking around, and these guys are still rocking and rolling. And the next thing I hear is, Carter, what are those 1.5 inch pieces of PVC out in the South Channel? And I said, what? Yes. And I got in my boat and went down there, and sure enough, there's, I think there's 10 pieces of PVC down there with little pieces of tape on them, green, red, and they have number 9, number 10, 8, 7, 6, all the way to the front. And so I go to Jim first, and I say, can you explain me what's going on with those little white things out there? And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. And I went, okay. And so, Marvin, can you explain to me what's being marked out here? The next thing you know, the next day, of course he doesn't respond. The next day, they're up in my channel, which is right in front of my house, out there in a ski boat with pieces of PVC, banging them in the ground like this, with this little thingy like this, and it turns out to be Marta's husband is out there marking the channel. I should have told you this before. Anyway, so we have all this high-level data, and we get a fella out there in a ski boat with a hammer and some pieces of PVC with some metal. And if you go, but it gets even more. If you go back to the original explanation, they're going to replace 26 of the markers that are approved, and then we're going to apply to get up to our 32 was the reason to not raise hell about it. But when you go out and you look at these pieces of PVC, I'm almost done, and they're all numbered, they're perfectly placed apart from each other. There's not any missing or anything. So that is clearly the intent is to stay with 26. And so I kept asking Marta, who's apparently in charge of this now, for what's the status, where we are, and that's what I have here, and I will just read it. The process moving forward includes bids from vendors, done. Select of vendors, done. Verify locations and water depths, 95% complete. Ordering the day boards, tilings, and hardware in progress. Charging and programming lights in progress. Keeping in touch with CG, Coast Guard, on our progress ongoing. And scheduling with vendor for installation, waiting for delivery dates for day boards, sending in CG 2554 for change, waiting on verification of coordinates and water depth, and then installation of new navigational aids. Pilings are readily available for delivery. Day boards take the longest to procure. As long as we continue to cooperate and make progress, the CG will work with us. Every effort is being made to have this complete in time for La Posada.
So let me tell you something. What I work in a firm called HDR. You guys may have heard of that. It's been in the newspaper. It's been all over the place. I look out across the crowd. There's several engineers in here that we've done multi-million-dollar projects in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba together, Philadelphia. We've done projects all over the world. We know how to do waterside projects, ship docks, wharves, piers, cruise piers, infrastructure. I can tell you,
commercial bucket,
the installation of channel markers is on the complexity level up here. It's way down here under my shoe. Okay, the people that worked on the Canal and Waterway Committee to put these markers in were the exact people that worked on these projects in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, Philadelphia, and all that, building installations for the federal government. We've been put to the sidelines, and we've got one board member that has made this so complicated that we can't get 32. I don't care if it was 132 markers. We should already have the markers in the canals, in the dirt, where people are driving. It's not that complicated. But everything has become complicated and convoluted. And what I'm asking you to do is read through this package that you've got. This is a very minor sample of the stack of BS that we've gone through. And keep in mind that the 3 members have no real vote. Our elections are coming up in March. We have real candidates that know how to get markers in, how to get a park project done, how to get street signs put up, how to get potholes done. Very simple things. Very simple things. It don't have to be complicated. We get on our list, get the information that we're giving to you. We're not going to go out and, if you saw the emails, it would blow your mind. We're not going to call people fatheads, fatties, uglies, stuff like that. What we're going to do is try to build a community, build the island like our bylaws say, okay? keep in touch. The last thing that's on the list tonight is the audit. If you guys, Richard?
I have to make
Okay,
one comment
before
about
we
the
leave.
Sorry, one comment about the canal harbors. So, what Carter just read was not shared with any of the committee, Canals and Waterways Committee. We had no idea what's going on until you shared that last Tuesday night. Plus, I don't think any of you guys knew what was going on until she ended up sending that little cryptic. And that's not detailed. Who are your vendors? What were your prices? That is just, anyway, my point is being the lack of information, the lack of transparency that was supposed to be with this whole candidate.
And especially on such a hot topic. I mean, how do you expect easy to?
I've got 1 year of my life into that project. I've got
Something
1 year
that we
of my
can all
life.
get behind. It doesn't have to be difficult. All right, the last thing that we're gonna talk about, and unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information, again, because we went back and forth. 5 months ago, there was a vote to do up to a $55,000 or $50,000 audit. $50,000. $50,000 to do an audit of our financial records at the POA. I think it passed 4-3. The 3 that opposed are sitting right here. Not because that we know or that we don't think we have things to clean up, because we do. We can always do things better. But we don't have to spend $50,000 to figure that out. You know, we have to spend the $50,000 on park equipment or channel markers. How about that? Do something constructive with this money. So what we have is we've got $11,000 contract, and I have not read through these in detail because I've asked for them again and again and again, and I got them tonight. So there was an email that was sent, I think it had an attachment about 5 days ago or something like that. But the point is, we got an $11,000 contract, $11,000 to do an audit.
20,000.
Okay, so at one of the two meetings ago, I think it was 2 meetings ago.
And that's to do the tax return also.
Yeah. So I asked about what's the status of the audit? What's the status of the audit? So the CPA came and I said directly, what is the status of the audit? How far along are you? After 4 months, we're about 10%. 10% of $11,000.
Are you kidding?
That's about $1,100 of completed work. Now, they probably don't make as much as attorneys. Let's say half at $100 an hour, or whatever, $200. It's very little work that's been done
But they
on the
want
audit.
$10,000 for accounting work.
Yeah, so the point is, 5 months down the road, we still don't have an audit done.
And guess what we don't have now?
And I will tell you this, we have a finance committee. 3 people on the finance committee. One is a licensed CPA. And guess what she told them? Don't spend this money on an audit because you're gonna get a letter back that says, yeah, you need to clean this up, clean that up. But you're not gonna find a lot, okay? Guess what? She got kicked off the committee. And guess what? The other gentleman that was a CEO of several companies, knows this stuff, he quit because she got kicked off. We have one member on the finance committee, Nick Colosi.
Board member.
The board member that wanted the audit. So, Brent?
Yeah, just real quick, we had a CPA for a number of years, and that CPA has since quit, moved on, decided not to do this anymore. That CPA, if all of this criminal stuff was going on, either that CPA was involved in it, or was inept enough that that person couldn't have done a good audit. And I'm thinking both of those things are probably not true. That's just my thought, that if the CPA, the former CPA for all of those years, signed off on change this, do a little bit of that, you know, or the 1 year, I know a few years ago, they had, you know, no management letter, which means they had a clean audit. Shouldn't the POA go back onto that CPA instead of spending $50,000?
Brent, I'm right there with you, I believe it, I buy into it, but, okay, the ship has sailed, right? I didn't vote for the audit, but, okay, it passed. The point to me is, we're 5 or 6 months down the road. We don't have any work done. We don't have any channels markers installed. We don't have, it's a quagmire.
Share with them what the 2 reports that the auditor did give.
Nothing.
They didn't find anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No cheeseburger.
Their interim reports was pretty much, there's some things that need to be cleaned up. Okay, I'm gonna start taking questions.
Who is the CPA at this time? or our bookkeeper that we're asking these questions.
So it's Jennings, Hawley and Company. They're a good firm. They're a good firm.
Who's our bookkeeper? Do we have?
We have a new bookkeeper that they just hired a couple days ago. What? I don't know, but she seemed nice enough. I talked to her. But, yes. And in addition, the CPA that has been doing all the quote audit work and frankly bookkeeping quit last week. But they didn't tell us until today. And I said, don't you think when your CPA quits, you ought to maybe share that with the board? Well, the firm didn't quit, just the CPA.
So the guy leading the audit is gone?
One
Yes,
that's doing the audit.
The guys that are doing, the gentleman that was doing the audit and spending the time in the office, going through all the books and all that, he quit and went to work for someone else. I don't know why he quit.
And I just wanted to clarify, and you said that happened last week,
Yep.
but y'all were notified today.
Well, we weren't actually notified, I asked the question.
Oh,
Because his neighbor told
So
him.
you were never notified, your neighbor told us, your
Okay.
neighbor told the board members what
Yep.
happened.
That's right.
So Brian,
This is off topic, and I understand, it's gonna go back into the board member situation. Is that, like I said, I've been here a long time, and I've never seen such a smear campaign on the streets of this little small community. The nasty signs everywhere, to the point where it's pretty damn disgusting. To the point where whoever's name was on those Game of Three, I said, if I could not vote for them, I wouldn't vote. Now, we're sitting here with a 3-3 tie, and I do appreciate you, I've known you for a long time, Brian. We're Mustangs together, you know, we try to work together. Required to do, but, I guess the ultimate question is that fourth board member, where are we gonna get them from? I should say, where can we get a fourth board member that would be more attuned to what's probably the best for the.
You got till midnight.
yeah, so it's a really good
Is that
question.
general for the, I thought the board members were by subdivision.
No.
There hasn't been a board member from this side for 16 years.
All you have to be is a property owner, and you can be.
Okay, so,
Which side are you talking about, Carter? The
so
side.
it's the old supplement across the bridge.
For the business then?
Fish.
Well, you know, I know, Sheriff's been trying to get Trish to do it for
Hey, hold on. So to answer your question, Brian, where do we, there's 2 things going on. It's a 3-3 split right now. There's an appointment coming up of the 7th board member, okay? And that process is about to start. And hopefully, if we're working as a board, we should appoint a board member, in my opinion, and get that position filled. Let's come to the table, look at candidates, and find someone that can represent the island. Okay, that's the first one. The next thing is, there's an election coming up in March. Frankly, that's why we're having this meeting tonight. There's 2 board positions that are coming up. It's my position, or my seat, and Daryl's seat. So the 3 over here are solid for 2 to 3 years. And then we have 2 seats that are coming up, mine and Daryl's.
And the one that's vacant.
And the appointment. So it's an important election. The candidates who are interested in running for the election are supposed to file by midnight tonight, and we'll see who those are. Then it's run until March.
Let me just share
Is it just,
You know-
is it just put your name in there, or do you have to call?
You gotta just put a little application in the background.
not a background
I
check.
have a resume, right? Rich? You have a resume.
No, they can't do it. Not a background check, just a background.
Oh, thanks to the bad check.
So just follow me just here for a second. You know, we all know that some properties changed hands around here. Some hugely developable property. The ski basin, for instance. Commodore's right here, all right? What do you think the chances of the developers of that project are to join this POA?
Zero.
Zero. And is that sad? That's what happens when you get to the quagmire that we're in. And that's really serious. I mean, you're talking about 900 lots over here,
I'd vote for you.
50 over here, 60 big ones over
Okay,
here.
Travis, you have a question?
What can we do on the appointment? Can we do to encourage the board to appoint somebody properly?
I think that, you know, it's a standard answer, write your congressman, write your senator and all that. But closer to home, I think write your executive director. And set the expectation that we should have a 7th board member. Let's get them appointed. And let's don't take till March or February, March, and wait till the election and all that. We can do this in 2 weeks.
But look, if we're not successful in March, I'm the lone pup up there, and it's not gonna be pretty. So we need to energize the folks.
What if we all wrote a letter with a specific person's name for the filling of this vacant position?
Wow, it's a board appointed.
So we can make a recommendation.
Yeah.
And if they all recommend the same
Remember, there's
person.
2 lawyers in there.
Okay.
So who would that be?
We need to wait to see who applies tomorrow to make that.
Well, they have apparently a month.
So here's my answer, I think. Can you get on our email list? Yeah, the sign-in sheet that went around, because we're having more meetings like this, and we'd love to see this many people show up, because there's been discussions.
I have
about
one
it.
other question. So this deal with markers, clearly there's something illegal going on, right? I mean, that is clearly illegal if you're not doing what has been voted on by the board.
I'll put that to attorneys, but.
No. Yes?
I-
No, ma'am, I'm not answering.
What I found.
It's a civil law thing.
What's your name? It's enforceable, let's put it that way.
No.
John, they voted on it, it's enforceable.
So the question is, there were 2 votes. There was a motion made to accept the Canal and Waterway Committee proposal to install the markers.
Yeah.
They revised that proposal. There was a second motion to come back. It passed 4-3. So the directive from the board was install it or bid it and install it like the Canal and Waterway Committee said. So she's asking, is it illegal?
Not to
not do it.
Not to follow that.
Marlon, the rest of the other 3 are saying don't do it.
It's not a function of illegality, it's somebody's gonna pay a fine or go to jail, it's just not following the board's directive. There was not an executive director in place at the time to do it. The president was supposed to his obligation of the bylaws is to do what the board of directors do. He didn't do that, and so the majority of the board would have to take action against him.
So, something you can do.
So in reality, he sent me out to get bids. So I got some bids, signed bids, I got polls bids, I got a bid on a reasonable price to put it in, and it was $27,000.
Okay, folks, it's 7:40. I said we were gonna respect your time. If anybody wants to stay, certainly stay. We'll answer questions as long as you guys want.
And we truly appreciate your participation.
So might it be important for those of us that are here that care about it, that maybe we need to start writing letters to the executive director saying, we had a board motion that passed, and we want it implemented from the community.
She's just gonna be able to say, I'm doing it.
Oh, I just wondered where the sign-up sheet is.
Okay, the sign-up sheet, does anybody have the sign-up sheet?
I think it's up.
We'll get that to you.
There it is, here it is.
So if you put in your bid for being a board member, not bid, but you put
Your
in your bid
application.
for board member tonight by midnight, tomorrow they see them all, and then they bring them to the board and you're selecting.
No, they're printing.
No, so there's two things. There's one that's an appointment, and then the second thing tonight, the deadline at midnight tonight is for filing to be a candidate for the March election.
Okay, so they can't vote a seventh person in now, you have to wait till March.
Yes, there's an appointment, there's one spot that's being appointed.
Two separate things.
Okay, so but what I'm saying, if they get appointed to be the seventh person soon. Right, if they get the seventh person, is that person then?
No, they take over her 2 years.
Her remaining 2 years.
Okay, that's my question. So it's gonna last until March or June?
So March plus 2 years.
Mine isn't a question. I just was gonna add to what Leslie said, and I think what Leslie said is so true. But in addition to that, is that if you're here and you feel passionate about this, talk to your neighbors and talk to your friends. Because there are a lot of people that do not know what is going on. And we need to get the word out that this is what's happening. This is our island. And we want to be a cohesive group that works together.
And it's being taken over by some people that have not been here for more than 2 years, 3 years.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
I know you have a lot of voice, so you don't.
Yeah, you don't need, I don't need the money. Turns out I came to the first meeting, I closed on my house with a sandbar here in Hollywood. I've been on a year. I get here and the first meeting I go to and it was a chaos. It was like, I said, what the heck? Okay, so I said, maybe that was rare. No. But the other thing, the first thing that gets to me is why this big sandbar, it's a big one now, a lot of people here, is not a village or a city. It's Corpus Christi. And it's a tax base. I mean, there's no question. So the city's not gonna vote against it, but that's not the issue. You have enough people here to form either a village or a city, and you ought to. You got an association. Association doesn't have stroke. A village or a city has a lot of stroke. A lot of stroke, political stroke. You got an association that, it turns out, who do you have on the city council that represents Padre? You got flower bluff.
I think under Texas law, you have to have the city council of Corpus Christi's permission to do what you're talking about. And if you think they're gonna let this tax base go, you're crazy. They're not gonna let it go.
No, you see, and I heard that same thing. I heard that from my neighbor. Said the same thing he said. That's BS.
No, it's not. It's the law.
The point is, when it gets down to voting, you're gonna find out 90% of Corpus don't vote. If everybody over here voted, you could be out of it. You're an island with votes, but people in Corpus ain't gonna vote. They don't show up to vote. I mean, I got in city council in Temple. People don't vote.
It's not an election of the people, it's an election of the city council. And the city council of Corpus Christi is not going to allow us to go our own way.
Have you tried? Have you tried?
It's been tried twice, I believe.
That's another debate, another time.
do you have anything, so when you met with that attorney, there was a significant statement I thought was made. When you met with the attorney at the table, there was a significant statement.
Hold on, we've got multiple conversations.
Okay, so when you met with that attorney, my understanding was there was a significant statement that was made that you might want to share. And it ends up being how you get things done and how you get things voted for. Do you want to share that with the audience?
Sure.
I think we already did.
Okay. So what Richard just asked me is, he said, do you want to share, when you had the meeting with the attorney, what advice or what the story was? And yes, I'll tell the story. So the story was, and this is where transparency and the thing that I told you earlier about non-transparency, I didn't agree with it. And I certainly don't agree with this one. So we asked a question about the process. You know, getting folks to vote something in and becoming one set of covenants or restrictions, and then going after the increase in fees. And I said, it doesn't seem real transparent, it doesn't seem fair. Do you think that's fair? The attorney said, kind of chuckled, got up, and he said, let me tell you about when I was in X law school. I won't name the university. When I was a freshman, we went through a freshman law school class, and at the end, we were talking about a subject, and someone said to the professor, I don't think that doesn't sound fair. At that time, he got pretty animated. He said, my professor turned red-faced, jumped up, and said, fair? Fair? If you want fair, you go across the street to the church. If you want the law and how to win, you practice law. I don't think all people are like that. I'll tell you, I dealt with John Bell or not dealt with. John has given very good advice to us over the years. My point in that story is, I would like legal advice that's
Moral.
yes, fair, moral, not sneaky, not non-transparent. We want transparency with the owners of this island. Y'all are my neighbors. I don't want to trick you into voting something.
Independent thinkers.
So, yeah, and there was a lot more colorful language. I took that out of the story, but I don't agree with that approach.
And we don't did that kind of the person leading our organization. On that note.
Okay, any more questions? Again, thank you for coming out.